Becca, what did you buy?
Probably something we'll regret.
On this episode of Buff's Garage, we're going to take this 84 Volkswagen convertible and bring it back to life after sitting, well, a very long time. On this episode of Buff's Garage, I step outside of my comfort zone to dig into something that I wouldn't have thought I needed, but Becca did. Well, all right. I guess load it up.
Yeah.
I'll be waiting in the truck.
Yeah.
It is a Wolfsburg, though. And this was always fun. Oh! Well, you missed it. She had one job. She missed the whole video of us loading it. We went to load the car and these guys came out to help us and they literally just pushed the car on the trailer. Absolutely easiest load I've ever done. So now we're gonna get this thing ratcheted down and get it home. Oh. All I can say is life gets to all of us. No one is immune, and stress comes in many different ways. Whether it's work-related or relationships, it's helpful to have somebody to talk to. And that's why I'm thankful to have the sponsor of this video be BetterHelp. So if you're struggling with stress and anxiety, deadlines, relationship issues, am I doing the right thing? Why am I not getting the answers that I need? BetterHelp will connect you with a therapist to help you find answers to some of these questions. Instead of being stuck in an endless loop of constantly questioning yourself, BetterHelp therapists can help talk you through some of the concerns to help you find the answers. Fill out a questionnaire and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. There are so many kinds of relationships that can be improved by therapy, not just romantic ones. Now click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/buffsgarage down below. And that'll get you 10% off your first month of therapy. Stress, anxiety, and difficulty in relationships can get to us all. And with BetterHelp, you'll have tools to help navigate them. So click the link below at betterhelp.com/buffsgarage and get 10% off your first month of therapy. I want to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring the video. Let's get back to work. So what did you buy?
A mess.
So this is an 84 VW. They really didn't change for a lot of the years that this was made. Same body, just a few minor changes here and there. So a few special versions, which I think this is one of them by looking at the emblem. But the top has failed. The interior is destroyed. The car doesn't run, doesn't have brakes, mainly because there's a brake caliper right there. And honestly, for 500 bucks with a title, it's another one of those, well, we can't just not get it. Even if it doesn't do very well on this channel, it's going to do well for Becca because she's going to use it as a regular driver. It gets about 37-ish miles per gallon with a 4-cylinder and the 5-speed. It's got air conditioning, convertible top. What more could you want? I guess brakes.
Brakes would be good.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and dig into cleaning this out, see what kind of parts are missing, see what we need, start ordering things online, and then getting this thing running and driving. We got a trip planned in just a few weeks to take this to the beach. So I guess get your gloves on. Time to dig into this car. What do you see?
Lots of yuck and a few tools.
Well, free tools are always a good thing.
Questionably.
Well, the top doesn't move, so
What is this?
we'll have to look at that. Ooh, what does that go to? We'll figure that out, I guess. You know, the dash though, it's not cracked at all.
No, it looks...
It's dirty, but it's not cracked.
Yeah, it's in good shape. It's only popping up right here, but it's...
That's fine.
Still, I mean, that still feels like it's pliable.
So it's not as bad as the desert car.
Yeah. And I mean, the seats aren't bad, but the cushion's really still in them.
So maybe we can get some seat covers?
Maybe I can make some.
Ooh. This is why you have somebody that sews. So it's got the rear seat, it's got a glass rear window. Like I said, the top doesn't want to come up, so we'll try to figure that out. This window's partially up, that one's all the way up, these are all the way down. Who knows? It's got the remote mirror control on both sides. Those were the speaker pods there, but no stereo, doesn't matter.
I don't know how this works.
We're gonna hear the sound of the wind as we're driving anyway. So you're working on a seat.
Yeah, I don't know how to... I don't think this back latch mechanism is working.
I pulled up on the side here, and if you look, it's really rusted. So I think that's probably what we're dealing with on her side. Ooh, what's this? Oh, here's what's left of the brakes. There's some brake pad left.
Fancy. Here's
This.
some more brake pad.
Oh, this is the boot.
That's an expensive piece.
That is expensive. Wasn't it like $300 or $400?
Clean that part up.
That's almost, this thing costs almost what it costs for the whole car. So I don't see any rips or tears.
Nope, and it's soft.
Oh, it is soft. It's not crunchy.
I bet it will clean up. We're gonna make it work.
Plus of the desert car, no rust. Downfall of the desert car, no interior. This one has dents and dings here. That's not a big deal. It has some rust down below, but you know what? This is still viable. It's still alive. We can pressure wash this and make this work, and when the replacement is almost the value of the whole car, that's pretty good.
Shall we see what the top's like?
Well, it was stuck. Let's see if we can figure it out. So
I bet.
that's a window crank that's missing. Oh, you got a button? Okay, there's a button. Oh, looky there.
Oh yeah, she's a peach.
We want to oil all the parts that need oiled. This should lift up.
How about we put the car in park and gear?
Oh, is the car moving?
Yes, it's about to roll over my foot.
How about now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay.
Should.
Alright, so we're going to get out the lube. Okay, so this string thing connects to the window. It still has its headliner.
That's all that's left. I don't think there's any top. Maybe we can salvage that.
Alright, so in the 84 year, the Volkswagen Rabbit, they had cabriolets later. They had a Golf, which was a different version overseas. Basically the same car. But this would have been this brown sand metallic, I think it was what it was called, with a tan top, tan interior, and I don't know why it has a Wolfsburg logo on the steering wheel.
I think it's a Wolfsburg car.
It may be.
It's made by the VIN number. It's made in the right spot for it to be a Wolfsburg.
It could be. What's a Wolfsburg, you ask? Well, here, let me show you.
The VW Wolfsburg Edition was an upgraded model that actually had a few extra options that you couldn't get on the normal VW Rabbit convertible. And contrary to popular belief, it was not built in Wolfsburg. It was actually built in the Karmann factory in Onnesbruck, Germany. And while most VW Rabbits were made in the US, VW Rabbit convertibles were made in Germany.
The good thing is it's small enough it'll almost fit in the back of a truck, so if we break down we can just get a U-Haul and load it up.
Yeah, just drive it into the back.
Yeah.
Alright, all lubed. Time to start cleaning. What'd you find?
The operating manual. I don't think it's going to be helpful.
Did this open? Can you open the pages? No, not really.
One page. Before driving, operating controls, do-it-yourself service.
Yeah, well,
Technical information, not helpful.
that was important at one point. So somebody's already been in here and done some stuff, and we're not quite sure what they've done. So we're going to start from scratch, but to do that, we're going to just clear out all the garbage. Oh, you know what we need to do?
We didn't check the trunk.
We need to check the trunk. Now these cars have this funky little trunk that I don't know which way it flips. Let's get that out of the way. Hey, get out of the way. Oh, isn't that cute?
No, it's gonna be a pain in the butt.
Oh, it needs another shock there. But look in there. Oh, yeah, we had no wipers, so that explains that. This seems harmless enough. Isn't this like a heater box?
That's what I was thinking. It's like a heater box.
Yep, and then, oh, your ashtray. I need that for smoking your cigars. This is garbage. I think they tore out the underdash, so it has no heat, just to point out. It has no heat.
Oh, we're used to that.
Rat's nest. Nice. What does that say? Hella,
That says Mexico.
says lights. This is lights of some sort. Weather stripping. I don't know why the wiper regulator and the wiper motor is out of it, but I'm sure it won't be an issue at all.
There's a wiper, there's a wiper. I'm guessing there's no tire, no spare, because it looks like it's...
Okay, so this would have had a spare under here.
Oh, it does have one. I don't think we're gonna get that jack out.
Push on it. See if you can get the... Is it air? Air it up?
I don't know. It's like super solid.
Well, we'll clean all this up and figure out how to get that out of there. Got the old mud daubers.
I'm certain it's probably rusted to the car.
Well, we'll dig it out and find out, because we do need a spare just in case. Not that these tires won't make it. You guys know my channel. Okay, you know what we didn't find? The high dollar center cap.
The last hubcap.
Yep, that's spendy. So I guess we'll clean all the rest of this out. Teenager's towel.
That's disgusting.
Hey, here we go. If only we'd have had this sooner. I think it's a little too late to armor all the interior.
Yeah, probably so. Whatever that coating is. Did you do it?
It's moving.
Okay, hang on. Yep, that's not happening. Okay, wait. Hang on.
But just pull up. There you go. That's it. Don't touch. So this is supposed to be a
More
safety.
money.
Look at that.
We might get our money back. Oh yeah, nice spiders. Oh, those are not good spiders.
Now they're dead spiders.
Those are not happy spiders.
We just learned how to release the seat. There is a safety cable right in there, and then it's got a hook on each side, and you have to lift up. But you could, if you were trapped in that tiny little trunk, kick it open. Rebecca found money.
It's not American money.
Well, let's go put it in the bin and see. Okay. Might be a carnival token. Car wash token. Let's see. Oh no, that is a quarter. That is the great GW. Right there.
Yep, that's not what the other one was though.
Actually, I don't know what it was. It is hard to see. Oh, here we go. You can read this side. What does it say?
It says we're blind and we need. It's a car wash token.
Well, that's worth like a quarter, maybe? I don't know. Why don't you pop that hood? That made hood popping sounds.
Yeah.
That's sticky.
None of that air stuff's on connected, but I don't see it. Doesn't look like.
That's where he sprayed the ether in it. This is all rotted out. This is going to have to be fixed to make all that work. Here's your mechanical fuel injection. Now there is an expansion tank and several other things along the way, but once it gets here, you're pumping fuel into metered fuel into the system, to which then goes into your injectors. Anyway, it goes into the engine, makes it fire. So we got to start figuring out what's what. Okay, it's got something in it and it's green. That's a plus.
Positive.
They have really dismantled crap up underneath here. And I get if they didn't know what they were doing or they were trying to figure something out. This was really a bad choice by Volkswagen to put your brake master under all this. Oh man. Oh yeah, it's got fluid in it. So it doesn't have brakes because they're hanging underneath the car. Little mud in the fan, but it's still there. Lots to do. Well, Becca found the one bolt that apparently holds the entire seat in. Let's see if she was right.
It's more like see if random dude on YouTube was right.
We give no credit to random dude on YouTube.
There's a tension spring. Did you undo that? Yeah, you did.
I didn't mean to. Probably broke it.
Take it back, and then you pull. Almost there. Oh, I'm caught in the carpet.
No, we're gonna rip it out anyway.
Yeah, but that doesn't help me. Ta-da!
Well, there's one down. Oh, it's connected. Oh, the bottom of your seat's falling off.
Yeah. Oh, it's slightly rusty.
Yeah, your ass is gonna fall through there.
This part's like a tractor seat, though.
Maybe we just put tractor seats in here.
What are you waiting on? Get your seat out.
Now with the seats out, the seats obviously held a lot of water. That's why they're both rusted out on the bottom, but the floors are still solid, kind of. But I gotta get this bottom seat out to get to the fuel pump. And this carpet's crap anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull those screws. And then we'll rip this carpet out. Interior gutted. Mostly. I didn't want to pull that back seat. But I did need to get to that, which is one of our fuel pumps. The other fuel pump is somewhere underneath the car. But even though it's not rotted underneath on the floor, the padding, the carpet, everything was wet. It's too cold outside right now for it to even come close to drying. So the best thing to do is just pull it all out. It was pretty much rotted. I mean, it was just peeling out like a banana. So it's out. We'll figure out what to replace it with. Probably use some Dynamat or something. And then, I don't know, throw something down on the floor to just be a barrier between us and the floor. Or just put some floor mats down. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I guess now we can dive into the mechanical. Starting with that. Now, from what I've read, it's just these 3 screws to take this cover off. You can tell the rats have been in here. Whew. Smells nice and rusty. That's how you want your fuel components to be. Alright, well, this tells me a lot. Now if this were a pump, it wouldn't have just these two wires going to it. It would have fuel lines coming out. It would have additional wiring, not just for the sensor. It would have this locking piece holding everything in, and it would all come out. There'd be a fuel pump, sock, and everything else. That's not there. This is just to tell us whether or not we have fuel. So yay for us, only one fuel pump. That's a good thing. It's not only cheaper, but easier to deal with. I've already got the one kind of pulled out already, and it's ordered, and I got a bunch of parts on order. And thankfully enough, there's enough of you Rabbit owners out there that there are parts available. Not a lot, but there's also forums and entire web pages dedicated to these little cars. If I want to make it super fast, there's a whole forum for that. If I want to lower it, there's a forum for that. If I want heat to work, I can tell you there's an entire page there. And Becca went above and beyond because this is going to be her car. She bought me some of those Haynes manuals and whatnot, the manual things to work on it. But I think we don't wait for them and we just dive in and figure it out as we go. You can't go home, we're just getting started. Get it started? Once again, I got the cheapest battery I could get at the O'Reilly's. And I think it's too big. It doesn't even... I can't fit the cable on there.
Definitely not going to be able to close the hood with that.
I'm not saying it's the right battery, but it is the right now battery. Ooh, I'm seeing sparks. That's good, right?
Sure.
Alright, these don't fit at all, but we're going to make them fit. Perfect. Now you aren't going to want to reach at all. Done. Save that for later. Felt like it started to do something and then it didn't. Okay. It does that. Okay, so we know it turns over. That's 90% of the battle there. We know that he said it ran off of ether, and we can see the remnants of his work here. Torn boot there, unhooked there. All right, perfect. It has oil.
It's positive.
Dirty. Hey, why don't we get a oil filter and some oil for it too?
Did you ever look and see what was hanging down that I saw yesterday when we were driving towards the back?
It's a fuel pump. But I have to jack the whole car up to figure that out. Yep, that's absolutely the fuel pump. They took it down and then they just left it hanging because that's what you do when you work on your fuel pump. The bracket for it's pretty much rotted away, so that's good. Yeah, see, they've got it wrapped up like a present, but the present is also rusty and falling apart. Rust free, except for all the rust. Yep, you're gonna need brake lines too. So all that's getting replaced. We might as well take this off and start looking at brakes. Yeah. How much is a new car?
I'm questioning if we should just cut our losses and take it to the salvage yard.
I mean, it's got to be worth its weight in scrap, right? Also, the heater's been dismantled. Half of it is in that box. What do you want to bet? They're having heater issues. Like I said, there's a whole forum dedicated to that. So let's dig into that as well. Yes, I could just make it run, but I'm waiting on the fuel pump. There's no point in trying to make it run without the fuel pump. The guy that had it before me said he got it to run off of ether. You heard it turn over already. There's no point in just shoving starting fluid or brake clean or anything else down it because he got it to run, and I trust that. So we'll get a new fuel pump, fill it up with fuel, and go from there. You know, yesterday when we were pulling carpet out, random things fell out, so we'll try to figure out where those go as well. Now while I'm waiting on parts to arrive, I've got to do something about this rear bumper. It's obviously rusted out to the point I'm not going to be able to just fix it. I could probably take it off and see what's holding it, maybe build a panel, bolt, weld, whatever I need to do to put it back on, but Becca's already said she wants it off. At the end of the day, I've seen a ton of them online where they remove the front and rear bumper. I don't know. I'm going to dig into it right now and we'll see what the issues are, and then we'll decide what we're going to do. Well, closer inspection shows it's just basically rotted out. That's aluminum there, and it's simply rotted out the mounting points here. So I could try to fix that, and then I'd have to fix this piece too. All is possible. Is it necessary? I don't know. Well, that was easy. Well, there's mouse houses and wasp nests, all kinds of stuff in there. The beauty of this is we can always decide later what we want to put in there, or I can just sit and try to repair all this garbage and then put it back. But for now, it's clean, it's out of the way. That's supposed to be down. There we go. Well, now that the bumper's off, I could try to tear into the top, but I'm just going to inspect it really well. Like, this rubber looks okay. I just want to make sure I don't have to order any more parts. Like, here's some stuff that's cracking. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to take a look at it. I'm going to kind of look it over real well, but I don't want to take all this apart, and then while we're waiting for our top, I end up losing stuff. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is, inspect everything, make sure it's lubed up. We're going to try to salvage the back seat, so I've got it drying because the bottom cushion was really wet. Just got it drying in front of the heater. We'll clean this one up the best that we can. Well, it is freezing cold outside, so I thought I'd sit in here next to the old heater and see if I can't not only dry out this seat, but maybe clean it up a little bit. It's probably lost a little bit of cushion, but it's the back seat. Nobody's really going to ride back there. So I got that seat cleaned up the best that I could. And we were actually lucky enough to find new seats on Marketplace. Now, new being that they were for a VW Jetta, not for a Rabbit, which means they wouldn't have mounted into the floor the way these seats are mounted. And new being that when we got there 2 hours away to pick them up, very small gentleman gets out of his Honda truck and then proceeds to tell us that the price is now doubled after we drove 2 hours to get them. Needless to say, we still have the old seats for the car, and I'm going to try some tricks to try to bring this one back to life, because if you look up the cost of just the foam for the seat, we could just buy aftermarket seats. The big issue with these seats is when you give them a squeeze, there's no padding left. And of course they're ripped, and we can always fix that with covers, but we don't want to sit on the hard metal if possible. So stupidly, I'm going to deconstruct this seat a little bit just to see what it's made of, and then I have an idea. Alright, so part of the issue is I need to make the side lever up here work again so that the seat will go forward. It does have an adjustment knob that I removed, and it's got some cracking, which I don't know if that's allowing this to turn or not, but it's not really turning, which means everything's probably frozen up. And then of course, you know, we have to evict these guys out of here. But this is where it sat out and got wet, and this spot is rotted. It's worse on the other seat, but I need to come up with a plan. Yes, it's just crunchy. I need to come up with a plan to reinforce this so your butt doesn't fall through the seat. Mainly my butt. Well, I've had to employ a lot of lube to get it to loosen up enough to turn, and I was right. This knob is cracked, and with a sticky gear, it just doesn't grip. So I'll figure out how to fix that later. But for now, got it turned enough that I could get to these hog rings, and they basically disintegrated whenever I put my screwdriver on them. And then, wow, it's like a chia pet started growing back here. It's pretty bad. That's just soil and moss. So that's fun. I think I'm gonna take a minute to dig all this out. IR fabricator. Yeah, it doesn't have the drain holes that it had before, but I think there's enough other holes. We should be fine. I'm gonna add some self-tappers across here. That'll add a little bit more structure to everything. It's got a little bit of give, which this was thin enough it had give to it as well. That should suffice, as long as I don't get a self-tapper in the butt when I'm sitting. Should be good. I've been working away on the VW, waiting on parts to show up, but this is the problem we're running into. You order the center cap, which we had one missing. That one's still there. That one's still there. By the way, there's the wheel color Becca picked out. Hopefully it looks good on the brown. I don't know. We'll see. But let me show you the problem here. You order the part. It said it was exactly the 6-inch center cap for the 13-inch wheel for the 84 Rabbit convertible. They don't look the same, do they? That's just one of the issues we've had. Before we knew that this was hidden in the car somewhere, this is the cap that was in the car. It's a locking cap, and for whatever reason I can't get the key to lock or unlock it, but it does turn and stay. But you saw how we found it. There was nothing there, so I ordered this one. This one said it is for an 84 VW Rabbit. You see the issue? Yeah, it's not for this at all. So that's the problem I've been having lately. You go and order the part, and then they end up sending the wrong part. So it's not boding well. I did get the new Bosch fuel pump down here for the Bosch fuel injection system, and I will be installing that. We will be checking the tank, making sure that's good to go, and we're going to try to run it. It was apparently supposed to get a new fuel pump, and that would make it run and drive again. Let's see if that actually works. When we went to the pick and pull the other day, I grabbed a few things. The old one was dented because the car is dented, so I went ahead and hit it with the old torch there and straightened it out really well, but it left a nice big old hole. So when we went to the pick and pull in Springfield, Missouri, I found one that is not damaged, so we'll be able to put that one in place after I finish working that spot a little bit. We found a few other things, including this door trim on the driver's side. We were missing this, and now we have it. A few interior pieces that we didn't have, including this lower dash piece. This is not it. This was the metal frame that held it, and the one we got was kind of torn up and the wrong color. I wrapped it. This is what we're going to use for the seat covers, and so I used spray glue and wrapped this lower dash piece. This is the ashtray cigarette lighter combo. It sits in that recess there. So once I'm done figuring out what's going on with all the wiring up here, I will put that lower dash piece in, and then we should be good to go. By the way, if anybody can tell me why there's a Wolfsburg logo in the middle of this steering wheel, and why there's not other badges on the car that make me believe it's a Wolfsburg, let me know. I've also pulled all the door panels because they're all wavy and just torn up. We could just clean these and try to reuse them, but I'm going to see if I can make new ones. On the rear, they were in okay shape, but they delaminated. So I rewrapped that one. Let me know what you think of that. That is the same material we're going to use on the seats, but I spray glued it on, and I think the finish turned out really good. We haven't figured out what we're going to do with the floor yet, but getting there. As for the seats, this one is all deconstructed. I got this lever working again. However, the cable broke. So we'll get that fixed. And then this seat will be able to pull forward. It was full of all of this horsehair stuff. No foam at all in that. But I sent the cover to Becca to start working on fixing that up. Also got a new one of these. Have not installed it yet. Let's do that. Just went on the old internet and went to the whichever website, I don't remember which one it was, eBay, Amazon, one of them, and got this new lift support. This should be the right one according to the instructions. Let's install it. So on these you have a little retaining clip and then a washer. That's those right there. Went ahead and pulled those off of each end. Now we'll take the pressure off. Same goes for this one. Yep, it's got a little rubber washer too. Alright, that end is secured with one fail swoop. Well, as normally happens, I lost a little clip off of this one. Got this one in place. That one's good. So, had to pull out the external snap ring kit and use a snap ring on it, which is not the same as what was on there, but you know what? It's holding. And this thing now holds itself up. Perfect. Now while I'm waiting on parts to arrive due to this winter snowstorm and every other delay that's going on right now, I've decided I don't want to paint any more cars. I just got the travel all out of here. I don't feel like painting any more vehicles anytime soon. So instead I went to my local craft aisle and picked up some colors that should complement the car quite well. There's that color that's very similar to the wheels. And then I used an interesting color palette to come up with the next choices. There's that one, some of that, and that. Should be interesting, should be unique, and should give this thing a little bit of color pop up against this brown. And for those of you saying, hey, you didn't even get it running yet, still waiting on parts. We've been experimenting with wheel color, and so far this one hasn't won over our hearts. So we're going to try white, but first I need to clean it. So I got this super clean all wheel cleaner, and we'll give it a shot, see how it turns out. Get it all cleaned up, and then we'll get it painted. Well, I've been slowly working my way through the fuel injection and electrical system, ignition system mostly, and here's what I'm finding. That's the distributor. Here's some of the parts out of it. It has this connector here which was corroded, and I've cleaned it. Check that down there, it was corroded, I've cleaned it. And what I'm understanding is there's a sensor in there called a Hall effect sensor, and if it doesn't send the voltage the way it's supposed to, the computer way in there doesn't send the electrical pulse back out to then tell the coil to spark, which then gives us distributor spark. So somewhere in this system we have a failure. Now I haven't torn this apart because literally these screws are so corroded that it broke 3 of my screwdrivers trying to get it apart. So I don't want to keep paying for screwdrivers. I can't diagnose this until I figure out why I'm not getting spark. That's really where I need to be first. And that's a brand new coil. New wires. The plugs looked fine. Cap looked fine. Rotor looks fine. So this is all I can come up with. That's some rusty stuff that was coming out. Some of it's pretty good and clean. Some of it's got some rust in it. Ended up splashing a little bit of gas in my eye. So I went and ran and flushed it out, but that's never fun. Even with safety goggles, it would have gotten my eye. So really needed the full goggle experience. Maybe a splash shield. Honestly, I've done this so many times I didn't expect it to splash back, but expect the unexpected, people. Now, I'm not going to say the tank was full, but it definitely wasn't empty. Somebody tried really hard to make this thing fire off. Smart me would go ahead and try to cap this off, put everything in place with the fuel running to save the gas, but in this case I'm not going to do that. First of all, this thing has been off for quite a while and it rained and who knows what else. And secondly, even though it does smell like gas and it burns like gas, I'm going to say it's better off just going ahead and draining this and being done with it. So far 3 of these pans have gone into another container to get rid of later. So either this tank was full or part of this is water. I mean, it smells like gas, but it's got a weird, I don't know. I'm not 100% confident it would have been good to run through the car. Okay, I got the old one out of this protective thing. This was supposed to keep it quiet when you're inside the car. At this point, don't even care. So got it in there, pulled the cover off. It looks the same. The outlets look the same. So the only thing I got left is to replace this rubber hose. Well, I hope you heard whenever I turned the key on, we actually got fuel pump noises. Obviously, I've now drained the tank, so there's really no fuel to go into the pump. So smart me would recheck all my connections, fill up the tank, and then let's try again. So I know I've got fuel to the fuel filter, which I assume means I've got fuel to this mechanical system. I've broken all of my screwdrivers trying to get it apart, so we're just going to call that good for now. The only thing I can't figure out is this sensor, which I cannot find. It's called a Hall effect sensor, but I can get the whole distributor, so I've got that coming. So we're just going to be done trying to diagnose it at that point. So once that distributor comes, we're off and running. I can tell you it's a little bit mind-numbing. Look what finally showed up. Taken forever. There's a distributor right there. Get this one installed, get everything hooked up, and this thing should start running. Let's hope. Well, I've taken pictures, marked everything, pulled out the distributor, and now we'll get this new one out of the package and prep it to go in. I want to go ahead and compare the two, making sure that they look similar. I'll go ahead and throw some assembly lube on here just because it's new gear going on old gear. Doesn't hurt to put a little lube on it. And with that, we matched the one we took out. It's going to be pretty close. Now I can just do some fine-tuning adjustments once I get everything basically bolted down, hooked back up, and see if we can get it to fire. All right, we're going to test for spark again. A little more juice. Better not have killed that starter. So I guess I'll let the battery top itself off and then we'll come back to it in just a few. Well, it didn't run for long, but it ran. That's all that matters. So now let's figure out the right fuel to spark ratio and get this thing running for good. Well, frustration's got the better of me. I went to take the belts off to even get to the timing belt, because I did buy a new one, and they weren't assembled correctly. So even if I got it running, it would have shredded the belts immediately. There was some kind of junk stuffed in between the air conditioner compressor and the crank pulley. There was some piece of plastic wedged in there that obviously wasn't supposed to be there, or at least seems obvious it wasn't supposed to be there. There are bolts missing, and I've noticed that they're wedged down into the cracks between the components, the accessory components, and the engine. And now I've got the cover off, and it's definitely got some oil, but also maybe some burnt rubber in there too. I'm not 100% sure what's been going on here. It's not good. So just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, I did go ahead and pull the alternator and water pump belt. I pulled it from the bottom. Then I started to pull the AC compressor belt, and it would not come loose, so I started to disassemble it from the bottom, and the entire pulley just kind of came apart. Like, there it is. So I'll come back to that after we figure out this timing belt situation. Well, I got the old belt out. It's definitely a little bit more worn than the new one. In fact, when I started to pull it off, somewhere on here it started to split. Yeah, right there. So it was on its way out. Now, there's a way to align these pulleys to make sure they're right. And what I did was I looked at how you're supposed to align them, noticed that they look to be aligned at this point, so I'm just going to leave them alone. There's a little notch on the back of this sprocket that's supposed to align with the flange on the valve cover, and then there's like a little dot on the intermediate one, and it's supposed to align with the pulley on the bottom one. Well, the pulley I have is for the AC compressor and isn't the same pulley that's mentioned online, in the manual, and everywhere else. So the pulley itself doesn't have a line. So we're going to assume, since it did try to run once, that it was fine. Yep, seems to go right on. Let's hope it works. That timing belt is a lot better than the old one. The old one was pretty loose. This one is not. Okay, I found another disintegrated plug and the wiring was brittle, so I've replaced it. I don't have the exact plug, and I waited way too long to get the one for the Hall effect sensor. And they're all pretty much the same kind of plug, but some are 2-wire, some are 3-wire. So I was able to just take spade terminals and then I put heat shrink over them so they can't touch when they're engaged into the plug. So let's see if we can't get something out of it. Oh, hey, that's better. My timing might be off. Let's try that. All of these plugs are just really brittle. But I'm not replacing them. I guess I'll just fix them on the fly as it goes. Let's see if we lost spark. Nope, still sparking. Well, I've decided I'm tired of fighting this thing. So rather than give up, I pulled the Bosch mechanical fuel injection out, and here's some of the parts just to give you an idea of how crummy they were. This is a little flapper, like a toilet bowl flapper, and as it moves, it allows fuel to come in and out through this little guy, and it's filthy. And I can tell you just looking at it, the rest of it's really dirty too. Oh yeah. It's really bad. So I'm going to take a few minutes and a toothbrush and I'm going to start cleaning all this up the best that I can. See if I can't get it sealed back up. I don't know, maybe we'll get fuel flow now. I was getting fuel occasionally and it would try to run, but we need more consistent fuel. Well, with the help of some Super Clean and basically brake clean, I was able to kind of get this all cleaned up. I did reuse most every part, including the copper washers, so the fact that we didn't have leaks before means we'll probably have leaks now. You know, I looked all this up on the internet to try to figure out how to do it. I don't know if I did it right. I just followed the example that was out there. Worst case scenario, I got to try to find one, and they cost more than the whole car. Yeah, let's see if it works. Nothing is currently leaking. It's doing things. Well, I do have a leak. Looks like it's coming from this one. See if I can tighten it down. Well, starter got hot, so the best thing to do is give it a break so we don't completely destroy it. Once it cools down, we'll be back and try again because it's trying to start, but it's not getting the right amount of fuel and it's not getting the right spark at the right time. It's just one thing after another with this thing. They say German engineering is great, but so far I'm looking at it and it's pretty much garbage. Give me a nice 4-barrel and some points any day and this thing would be running by now. But you can't convert this engine to carburetor and points without a lot of fabrication. So here we are trying to make it work. Well, I hate to say it, guys, but this video has pretty much taken me over 2.5 months to get to this point, which is we're getting a little sputtering, and that's sometimes with starting fluid and sometimes it'll just try to do it on its own. So either there's something majorly wrong with this Bosch mechanical fuel injection or I'm the biggest idiot in the world. Either one is plausible. I have been digging through research, ordering parts. Nothing I have done has solved the problem of car won't start. It tries to start. Let's recap. I put in a Bosch electric fuel pump, the actual brand that you're supposed to buy for these things. Installed that, got fuel up to the mechanical fuel manifold. I then wasn't getting sparks, so I checked the coil. Coil was good, but coil wasn't making sparks, so something wasn't right. So I decided, let's just install a new distributor. Finally found one, got it ordered, got it shipped, got it installed. Still no sparky sparks. So then I checked the Hall effect sensor, which is built into the distributor, and it was not getting consistent power. So we built our own Hall effect sensor plug. Had to wait weeks for that to show up because they don't make one readily available to order online that I could find. So now I've tested over and over and over that I've got good sparky sparks. I changed the timing belt to make sure that the timing on the system would be correct. I made sure I was at top dead center. I made sure that the timing mark on the flywheel matched the, notch for 0. Guys, I just don't know. There's so many things. I really thought that it was okay to jump ahead and making good progress on making the car functional with redoing the interior. We got a new top for it, which we haven't installed yet. I started kind of mocking up some vinyl over the paint. So many things I started because I was waiting on parts. But at the end of the day, still no run. If you happen to be a Bosch mechanical fuel injection guru, I want you to hit me up at buffsgarage@gmail.com. I have looked at all the forums. I bought the books. I can't believe I don't understand it. I took this whole manifold apart and it was gummed up. I've cleaned it, put it back together. I still don't, I don't understand. I don't understand. And I'm about to cut my losses on the car and throw it up on Marketplace and just get it gone. But it's not my car, it's Becca's car. So I really feel like we have to get it going. Make sure to like and subscribe, put a comment down below what you think of this pile. And I'm sure I'll get back to it eventually. Just done for now. Okay, I haven't given up yet. I'm doing something that I read on one of the forums to understand ignition timing and dwell and all the things that go with that. I've got my meter hooked up to my Hall effect sensor, the one that tells the coil when to fire. And the rotor is about to fire on number 4, and with that you see this increase in voltage. Now I'm going to manually turn the motor and it drops. Obviously you heard the coil discharging. So now it's away from the lug that would have fired number 4. So as we turn, there we go. We're back to where it's going to get ready to fire again. And if I turned it again, it's going to go ahead and fire. You'll hear it through the cap. So basically what this proves is my Hall effect sensor works, as it should. It's brand new. The computer's working, the coil's working. What I really am lacking is fuel, and what I found out by asking on the internet, a few subscribers stepped up to help me out. As you saw this whole time, I was trying to get this started without the air breather tube, this tube right here on. Well, that doesn't work. It runs off a vacuum. It's going to suck through that to make this work. I know I have fuel up here, but it wasn't getting to where it needed to go because this wasn't hooked up. There's a few other tips and tricks I'm going to try that I was told about, but first things first, I'm going to tighten all this back down, make sure it's secured, there's no vacuum leaks, and then we're going to try this again. It's time for you to go back on. I just didn't have a clue that this was going to be such a big issue. I've always said you don't know what you don't know. That's why you step out of your comfort zone to learn. What's the number one lesson we've learned today, folks? If it's buy a VW, you were not paying attention. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye on the meter. And just like that, it's running again. Now obviously I've got a lot more to do before I can go any further. I've got to put this whole thing back together, from changing the timing belt, putting everything back on it. But I just want to show that with your help and a lot of determination, you can get your project going again too. Just from the smell alone, I bet I can tell you what the plugs are going to look like. So let's pull out number 2 here. Okay, I am wrong. Well, there's a lot of fuel in there. But they're clean. They're not sooted up. There's a lot of fuel in there. Definitely going to need to change this oil. That might be an issue. Not sure how that happened. I'm not going to do much sparking with the electrode touching. We should have gapped them properly. It was properly gapped when I started. But a lot's happened since then. Well, very wet. Yep, gonna be wet. Oh, hey. I bet you need to be on there. Yep. A lot of fuel coming out. Okay. I'll be honest, I think we have a little bit too much fuel, and I don't know if that's part of this system or what. I don't know what I don't know. But there's fuel. I've got spark. All of these things I didn't have when I started, so I'm optimistically hopeful. Well, you guys are going to learn CIS fuel distributor at the same time I do. Now, this is just the top. The bottom piece has a big flapper. I mean, think about a toilet bowl, the back of the toilet bowl. And if you're a car guy at all, I'm sure you've been asked to fix the toilet flapper because, well, that's relevant. Anyway, most of you can imagine the toilet flapper, right? Well, it has one of those, and that's what the air intake hose that I left off for most of the time is hooked to. And then as the air passes through, vacuum opens and closes that, which then also actuates this little guy. It's like a little plunger. Now, when I first took this apart, which stupidly didn't show you, plunger was stuck, gummed up. Everything was black and gross and didn't work. Well, now the little plunger works great, but for some reason we are flooding the car. So I'm going to tear this apart. It's leaking as well. So when they seal these at the factory, these two halves get sealed with a fuel-resistant wax. Well, I looked at the forums and there was a couple of ideas on how to reseal this. Not RTV. And I chose what I thought was the easiest, which was the copper gasket spray. Diesel guys will swear by it. That keeps their head gaskets from blowing out. But I tried it, and maybe I didn't let it cure long enough, but it's definitely seeping around that edge. So I'm going to go ahead and tear back into it, let you guys see what's going on with it, and maybe together we can fix it. Well, we're going to start by putting this T25 Torx bit to work. I've got one that hooks into my ratchet. If yours are really stuck, you're not going to be able to twist on it with like a T25 screwdriver. You're going to want to go get the ratchet one. I mean, I know this is a great table that I made. Ooh. All right. We just won't upset the apple cart here. Okay, so if you can afford to go get this little T25 on a socket, all you need is the little one. It works just fine. Just enough torque to break it loose. Now, I can tell you honestly, I don't know where I went wrong, but you guys, as subscribers, came to my aid. And not only did I get messages, but I got emails, and I even got offers for people to have me call them. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate that. I'm not the greatest mechanic in the world. I'm not even a good one. I'm a hack that likes to watch YouTube and hang out with guys that like to work on stuff. Unfortunately, that brings me into a world of cars that I wouldn't normally have access to. Like Falkenstein back there. He's something else. And thankfully, he runs and drives. He's ready for the next stage, getting ready to get pimped or buffed. I don't know. But this one's Becca's, so I can't just kick it to the curb. And she spent a lot of money getting stuff for the interior, getting new tires for it. She got a new top. The top cost as much as the whole car did for us. So at this point, we got to make it run. And it does run. It's just we got to make it run good so that she can go off and enjoy the world and drive around and not get stranded somewhere. And we sure as heck don't want fuel dumping into the engine and leaving her stranded, or worse, catching on fire. I've actually heard of these CIS fuel distributors catching a car on fire. We don't want that. Being that it's mechanical, it does have some electronic actuators, but the majority of it will run mechanically off a vacuum. I mean, you got to have the electric fuel pump to provide the pressure to the regulator, this manifold, whatever you want to call it, and then it lowers the pressure and distributes the fuel out. And you know it's right when you hear the fuel injectors sing. Well, they're singing, but when we tested that spark plug, it shot fuel out of the hole. Now, that may be normal, but in my opinion, I think that's way too much. I'm going to say it's flooded. That and the fact I actually know that if the plugs are physically wet, you got too much fuel. Okay. Well, I just pulled her apart and it kind of went everywhere. Let me show you what I got here. I had junk in there. Awesome. All right, so just for my... No! Why are you... You're supposed to be in there. Get back in there. All right, just from me doing this previously, I can tell you where all these parts go. Like, these sit on these little dudes. Like that. This one's missing its hat. Let's put it back on. Anyway, you get the idea. Let's dump these out and see what we're working with. Now, I'm smart enough to know that we're not going to dig in here and adjust any of these things. That's not the issue. Somewhere in this mess, it's sticking. And we need to figure out where and why. Now, I've said it before, I'm no expert. These O-rings need replaced, but they're not even an O-ring, they're like an oval ring. I wouldn't even know where to get them. That's the problem. There is a lot of junk in here. Yeah, my copper gasket stuff didn't stick. It's very, very obvious. But that's okay. We got it apart. We'll clean her up and try again with something else. And you can see it got copper gasket all over my parts in here. So we're gonna clean them up. Everything I've said, red brake clean is just fine for this. Now that I'm covered in brake clean, let's let that sit. Now this plunger's all freed up, which I love. It's covered in copper gasket stuff. That's not great. Maybe it should have dried more. I don't know. I really don't know, guys. I am winging it, reading the books, reading the forums, but I am no expert. And I will tell you, I hope I never am. I hope Becca enjoys the car, and then maybe gets bored with it. I did buy some stuff to lubricate these O-rings because I'm not going to be able to acquire them around here. I know there are kits available. I'm honestly just trying to do it without them right now. This car was built in Germany, so everything is metric. Now, this should pop out. Had to give it a few little tappy taps, just light little taps. I don't want to mess anything up. Now, we weren't having a problem with too little fuel getting through, but too much fuel. Yep, that O-ring doesn't look great. That O-ring doesn't look great, but they're there. And this little filter guy, pretty gross. But again, it's moving fuel. In fact, it's kind of plugged with the copper stuff. I'm feeling like the copper gasket trick that was mentioned in one of the VW forums was probably not a good idea. Or I didn't wait near long enough. That's probably the reality of it. Oh, okay, that's held on with some snap rings. Well, kind of snap rings. We're kind of at a point of no return where if I break stuff, we're going to have to actually pay to fix it. Okay, got the fuel filter off of this piece, and that's not the fuel filter for the car. The fuel filter for the car is obviously in the car, but it's not horrible. It's stained, and I don't know if that's the copper stuff that I used or if it's just all that gummed up fuel that was in there. But again, we're not having a problem with too little fuel. We're having a problem with too much fuel. So I'm just going to clean everything up with some brake clean. I worked in medicine, so a sterile field is exactly what we need. We need a sterile field. You are not sterile. Get out of here. Because when I opened it up, there's a bunch of junk and stuff in there. And I just want to decrease the chance of this being a problem. Something was stuck open, and I don't know why. Or why we're getting too much fuel. But I'll figure it out. There's only a few readily available tools on the internet to help you go through and do this, or I wouldn't have even tried it at all. I'm mechanically inclined, but also completely stupid. So I'm willing to move forward in the face of adversity to try to fix this, and knowing that I probably don't know what I'm doing. Well, I flushed everything out with brake clean, and at this point I can start to reassemble it the way I had it before. And let's be clear, it was kind of working, but it was leaking a little bit. So it could have been this piece that was leaking. It could have been the bolts holding it. I honestly don't know. But what I do know is that there was too much fuel, not only going into the engine, but coming out of this thing. So I've kind of got it to the point I can reassemble it. And I'm looking at this, and you can see pretty much where it goes back. It's got this tiny little hole, and you can look up to the light and see it. And you want to make sure that that goes back to this little piece right here, and it has the corresponding one up here. So when they go back together, everything's got to line up just right. In theory, these things are machined to the point that this should be all you need. And torque it down, which they use flathead screws to mount it to the bad choice. But anyway, at this point we've got to decide if we're going to use some gasket sealer. This time I'm going with an anaerobic gasket sealer. It's what they had. I mean, it's better than RTV, but you have to be super thin with this because reality is we can't get it like too high in some spots and too low in others, and we certainly don't want it to squish into any of these tiny passages. So some will say from research you just do the outside, some will say you need to do around every little passage. I don't know what the school of thought is. So I am going to, I guess, see how thin I can get it coming out of here. So we definitely want to do around the outside. Let's see how well that, oh yeah, that is a lot. That tiny little amount just really goes everywhere. So if this is where you think I'm messing up, put the comment below. Not gonna hurt my feelings, but I definitely feel like there's a lot there. Now this is kind of a gasket maker, and it is anaerobic. So let's see, that should go on like this. Oh hey. And now we'll do this side. Okay, with a little bit on each side of that diaphragm, it looks like it's lined up where it needs to be. Now the critical moment of taking this and all these silly little O-rings and seals and trying to get it back in here. Let's get it lined up without anything falling out. Honestly, I don't know if that's exactly where it needs to be, but it went together. So I'm going to do the wrong thing. That's actually the only thing. I've got one choice here. So I'm going to go ahead and just put these screws back in, torque everything down, and hope we don't have any leaks. Okay. Now we got to put our little plunger back in there and snug that down. And maybe it'll stop leaking. Got my plunger back in. It's moving air. That's, I guess, good, because that means it'll move fluid. All right. Now, pending any other issues that I find, I guess we'll mount this back on and see if that at least eliminates the fuel leak we were having. Whether or not it makes the car run, I don't know. But this was one thing we needed to fix regardless. These 3 screws are my nemesis. They're just flathead. And when they were really in there, they were corroded. They're still corroded. But they did not want to come out. I had to end up using the impact on them. And I was afraid I was going to destroy them. I mean, I did a little bit. But I also destroyed 3 screwdrivers trying to do it by hand. Let's see if we can get this back in. Alright everybody, let's play nice. Yep, gotta be careful. Alright, we're going to let that cure and set up, and we'll come back and reinstall everything else before we try this again. I'm going to replicate turning the key on by plugging this in. Okay, that was my fuel pump I heard. We can assume there's fuel up to this. Oh, and I got a leak already. So those 3 screws that go down through the top, they're leaking. I don't know why they're leaking. Now, I'm going to stand over here and see if we're shooting fuel out. Okay, that one shot fuel. So that's the 5th injector over there on the top. And it's supposed to shoot a little bit of fuel in right when you're trying to start the vehicle. Oh yeah, it's just pouring out of here. This is leaking so much worse than it was before. They always say don't touch these because they leak. They're right. It wasn't leaking this bad earlier. See if I can torque them down a little bit. Key is off. So I want to go ahead and clear these cylinders again. Yep, no fuel there. Perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and put our spark plugs back in and see if we got this figured out. Well, I have a feeling that this is just going to be the bane of my existence with that tiny little fuel leak. It is very small, but it is persistent, and I have tried to reseal it, but it is still just trickling out. I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to take this thing completely apart again. Spark plugs back in. Gonna hook the wires back up and see what happens. All right, double checking all my wires. 1, 3, 4, 2. Yep, all hooked up. Well, this is gonna leak until I figure out how to make it not leak. But we need to see if we can make it run. We did it! However, I see a slight problem. All of that gasoline that was just dumping in and hydrolocking the engine just blew itself out of the oil dipstick tube. So I guess an oil change in order. And this was leaking everywhere, but I'll get all that figured out on another episode of Buff's Garage.